Even though I was born in 1999 and thus after the original release and hype for it, I've never not been aware of Doom. I just didn't play the series at all until Doom 2016, a phenomenal experience that maybe one day I'll talk about on this channel, but that isn't what this video is about. On the 10th of December 1993, ID Software released a then branded 3D adventure game, but is now referred to as the boomer shooter Doom on the MS-DOS. That said, it didn't stay on the MS-DOS for very long. Before the turn of the millennium, it had found a home on the Sega 32X, the Atari Jaguar, Mac, PC-98, the SNES, the PlayStation, the 3DO, in which the number represented how many people owned it, the Sega Saturn, and finally, the RISC OC. Usually when a game built for one machine suddenly ends up on everything, it means one of two things. Either A, it didn't sell well enough to survive, so had to be ported, or B, it was the polar opposite, being so insanely successful that making it more available was just the most logical business move. Considering Doom was estimated to be installed on more computers worldwide than Windows 95 by the end of 1995, I think it's easy to tell which one it was. But this isn't new information. Everyone knows of the chaotic development, sleeping in the office, 30-hour shifts this game burned through to get it out of the door before the end of 1993. Everyone knows how word of mouth blew the game up so much that it at the time baffled Microsoft when their entire dedicated marketing team spanning over 100 people couldn't get as much attention from the general crowd than a small team of around 12 developers spitting out their hard work into the wild. The game's whole first episode was free to install, with further episodes being orderable through mail order. Yes, children, mail order! Nowadays, the entire package is on just about everything, same with its sequels, including the oddball of the group, Doom 64. I'll be covering the PlayStation 4 release this time around. One day I would like to tackle 2, 64, 3, 2016 and Eternal, but some of those would likely be bigger videos that I'd rather tackle a different day. I mean, I was originally planning to cover 2 and 64 in this video, but the length of just covering Doom 1993 got a little out of hand, so for the sake of showing a little restraint on my part, I kept it to just the original. Either way, let's find out what the heralded grandfather of shooters, unless you want to count Wolfenstein 3D as the owner of that title, has in store for someone who never grew up with that era. With an engine hand designed by John Carmack, a literal living legend of the industry, Doom was conceptualized in 1992, with the original idea being that it would be influenced by Dungeons & Dragons instead. This didn't entirely stick, but some pieces of that original concept can still be found here. The Space Marine attire, for example, originated from that concept. Bobby Prince was brought in to do the music, and boy do I hope you all enjoy MIDI files, because that's the whole soundtrack while you play. I actually adore the soundtrack of this game. Regardless of how iconic it is nowadays, there's always this fear that the old isn't as good as those who remember it as, and sometimes it's better to not experience it again in case you end up disappointing your memories. But thankfully, that isn't the case at all. In fact, I found myself jigging to the soundtrack often. Too often, actually. It ended up getting me killed a number of times. My journey through Doom took 2 whole playthroughs in the end. My first on the game's equivalent of a normal difficulty, hurt me plenty, and a second on hard mode, ultra violence. This was so I could record footage easier at a more casual pace while still learning the game on my first run, but then see what the game has to offer when put to the test on a second. I'm not enough of a gamer to want to do nightmare difficulty, but the little I tried of it certainly seemed doable to me, and not just, instant death the game. Additionally, the game is split into 3 core episodes and a 4th that was released later as an expansion. Each episode is then split into maps. The game labels them by episode number, then map number. So if I refer to a level as E2M4, for example, I mean episode 2 map 4. Got it? Anyway, enough messing around, let's dive in. E1M1 is iconic for being the opening playground. Only a small handful of rooms, 2 enemy types, one that will just hit scan you if you don't interrupt it with just about anything, and another that will throw moving projectiles at you from a distance. The soldiers and imps respectively aren't at all difficult, but the latter does take a smidge more punishment than you'd first expect. However, there's already 3 secrets to this level, just in case you were wondering if this is just a beginning stage and nothing more. One of these secrets is actually the early shotgun, which should be your de facto weapon of choice over the pistol, and especially over your fists. If you're forced back to just the pistol because you ran out of ammo and everything else, you probably weren't going to survive the rest of the level anyway, dude. Interestingly enough, the switch to get outside 5 seconds into the stage wasn't actually there in the original release, but instead something added to the map to make more compatible with Deathmatch, a mode pitting you against your friends. It's a short level but gives you all the basics you need to understand what comes next while giving you one of the most recognizable beats of 90s gaming. I'll try to find every secret I can, but can't guarantee I'll be nabbing them all in every level going forward. Just E1M1 is something I have run through a number of times through the bonus modes of other games. When I say it's iconic, I mean it, it's everywhere. While I'm at it, I should explain what hit scan means, since the soldiers won't be the only enemy to make us deal with this. The idea is, instead of a visible projectile for you to avoid, the game just checks if you're in the line of fire when the trigger is pulled. If you are, you just take damage on that frame. Heck, most of your own weapons also work off this logic. It's why you can instantly beam an imp from across the whole level if you line yourself up right. Basically, if an enemy shoots and you take damage but you can't see the bullets that came at you, it's assuredly hit scan in this game. E1M2 effectively does the same thing as M1, but expands on the scale. It has 6 secrets, and on my first run I found precisely none of them, just in case you thought ID were your friends. That's a joke, by the way. ID were well known for giving out the source code of their titles and encouraging people to mod or otherwise expand on the game in their own ways. Heck, even on this version of the game there's a community mode where you can download maps people are still making to this day, but I digress. This is also the level to introduce keycards, starting with a red keycard. At most, a level can have 3 cards, unlocking different doors to progress that will always be color-coded so you know which key is needed at a glance. As a whole, expect this to be the norm with every 90s ID game. You'll be seeing it in Doom 2 and 64 as well, for example, and if I ever cover Quake and Wolfenstein 3D, even more so. Despite what I said, hunting for the secrets in this level are definitely worth your time. I nicknamed it the chain level in my notes, for a good reason. The chain gun is tucked away in here if you want that destroyer worlds early, as well as your first best buddy, the chainsaw. The former is self-explanatory, it shares bullets with your pistol, but you weren't using that anyway, so go buck wild ripping through a dozen bullets per second. Great for crowd control. The chainsaw is your dedicated "fuck it, this thing dies tonight" button. A real close quarter demon slayer intended for those personal battles. I tended to find it actually pretty helpful in a pinch all game long for both playthroughs, but at least for me, it was at its best in a pinch and not as a tool to overly rely on. All in all, great follow-up level that also did a great job introducing its pretty impressive lighting system for the time, while also rewarding your curiosity and upping the challenge slightly. Oh, god damn it! E1M3 has 2 keys now, with the yellow key being a little more hidden away, and the blue tied to a kinda cool trap where the lights get killed and a secret door of imps ambush you the moment you pick it up. It also lets you meet the pinkies. These guys only care about one thing, and that's how far into your face they can get. Chain guns do away with them pretty cleanly, but it's not always a practical solution, especially if bigger threats later on start to demand your attention more. However, another fun tool to deal with bigger threats hides in here too. The Rocket Launcher is found behind a speed test of getting from one point to another as quickly as possible. In fact, several secrets in this level work off that logic, so they were clearly in the mood for a race when designing this level. Not much in terms of complexity yet, but still building up the pressure while expanding your arsenal. You can find an invisibility power-up here though, which is hilariously useless in this game. Yeah, because I'm absolutely going to sneak past enemies in Doom instead of engaging. I do like, however, that the secrets in this levels ultimately build up to hitting a switch that allows you to cross a toxic waste at the very start of the level to find its final secret, straight up a secret extra level. The M9s of each episode are your secret levels, this one being a straight gauntlet with so many enemies you're bound to catch a couple of them turn on each other, something that genuinely took me by surprise the first time I saw it. The enemies are capable of turning on each other. This level can also give you your early encounter of the Spectres. A pinky that's invisible. Yep, that's the enemy. Have fun. The secret level also has its own secrets, because of course it does. The level is a big plus symbol with 3 keys to collect to advance and a mandatory trip into acid. Not to be confused with an acid trip, the former is a hazard in game, the latter is a hazard in you. This trip into acid is to find a switch to get out. Simple to understand, but easy to find yourself overwhelmed with just how many enemies can spawn here. You're bound to get beat up here, so now's as good a time as any to explain the armor system. Armor halves all incoming damage by having the armor percentage take it instead. You run out of armor, you're going to feel every hit that comes your way, so maintaining that as well as your health is vitally important. This is relatively universal across the entire franchise, by the way, so feel it out now if you plan to go through every game. Finishing a secret level will drop you to the level after where you entered from, so since I entered in M3, I leave in M4, effectively skipping the last piece of that particular level. E1M4 honestly flies by when you know what you're doing. 3 secrets, one is right next to you when you start, and you have to get the second on the path for the third one, and the third one is in view of the opening encounter. Short mission, more to introduce the anti-radiation suit, an item that feels almost entirely useless on a standard run of this episode, and makes the screen green to boot. It stops you taking damage from the radioactive waste scattered around the maps, but if you're stepping onto it, you'll only be doing so for secrets, which take less than 1 damage check to reach most of the time. Any other time you fall into it is on you. If you're not following a guide but want to find all those secrets, then I can at least throw the suit a bone here. In later episodes with way more mandatory hazards to navigate that also do more damage without the suit, it gains far more of a purpose, but for now it is what it is. Thankfully, M5 left a better impression on me, actually giving a purpose for the green screen suit, as you have a small puzzle in the middle requiring you to spend some time in the acid. I say puzzle, it's riding 2 lifts and pressing buttons. The unique pickup of this map isn't a weapon, but instead an auto map filler. I hadn't mentioned it yet, but at the push of a button, you can bring up the level map. It charts as you go, so you'll only be able to see where you've been, while this power-up will fill the whole map for you. I feel like it only has purpose on your first run, or if your mental compass isn't that great. Mine's pretty on point if I do say so myself, so I found the auto-mapper a little pointless. Not as pointless as the invisibility, but getting there. The light amplifier, however, yeah, that power-up is appreciated. Turns the lights back on in dark areas so the demons can't rely on the secret weapon of knowing I'm a blind bitch to stop me. Doubly helpful because it's in a room with like a dozen spectres, but with the brightness cranked, they're just pinkies again really. M6 is a pretty fun secret whilst also trying to be more of a maze in design. So much so I genuinely couldn't find the exit a little after clearing house and had to run around longer than I care to admit. The fun secret, however, is that you can actually skip getting the yellow key and just enter through a secret wall at the back along with a supercharge to destroy everything looking the wrong way. Made me feel like I was more the demon than them, but you'll learn as we go through this series that's kind of the point, especially if I cover Doom 2016 or Eternal. The level ends in a forced gauntlet with soldiers, imps and spectres. That was a little stress causing on my first run, but definitely manageable as long as you don't corner yourself like I did. If there was ever a level that I could assume chokeslammed kids into game overs back in the day, then my pick would be M7. Although not insanely difficult, it does literally start with spectres rushing your spawn, and the rest of the level kinda doesn't let up. The music carries more menace than before. I nearly died a few times even on normal. Yeah, it is the game checking if you've actually learned how to play now. And to be honest, I loved it. It was easily my favourite level of episode 1, and one I eagerly awaited returning to on my second playthrough. A genuine difficulty check done right that felt so rewarding to overcome, even if I don't think I'll hit the par time here. Actually, every level does have a par time, and although I'm sure it'd be a fun challenge to go for, I never felt the need or desire when playing. Not that the game needs to give me such a desire, it's more the game's secrets feel like something you'd want to chase instead, and going for that usually makes you detour from the main path, making the par time less likely to be hit. You get the idea. One is something you'd show off to your friends, but the other actually gives you a real reward. But it's 2023 and not 1993, so I really doubt flaunting that I beat a level in under 2 minutes would earn me much street cred. In M8, you will find a boss challenge of some description. Doesn't mean there's literally a boss at the end of all of these, just that they're designed around enemy waves and surviving against all odds as opposed to actually exploring or puzzle solving. That said, there's still one secret here anyway, but it's along the way and actually a freebie. However, we do get a new enemy introduced that acts as the boss for now but will become a normal enemy later. The Barons of Hell! 2 tanky bastards, but are effectively just imps with a bigger hitbox that take a lot of lead to put down. Just keep moving and hold the trigger down and you'll get through it before you know it. I genuinely appreciate the small little piece of storytelling you get after this. You find a portal at the end instead of the usual win button and find yourself immediately surrounded by hordes of monsters just as suddenly cut to the end screen. It's not much at all, of course, but I'd already expected there to be almost nothing story-wise until Doom 3 outside of manuals and a small chunk of text at the end of episodes. Basically, our Doom guy cleared up Demon Facility, but instead of going home, found himself in the shores of hell on a moon base, thus setting up episode 2. Starting a new episode removes all of your weapons, so we're back to just the pistol, but more often than not, the game is quick to give them back to you. In the shores of hell, you'll have your entire arsenal back by the end of M2 if you find every secret, plus an extra we'll get to momentarily. E2 starts by trying to scare you into a portal, which you want to do. Trust me on this, because your shoddy is here, so you can actually fight back with a gun that works. Man, I don't mean to bully the pistol so much. It's not its fault it's underperformed. It's okay, little buddy. Your time will come. Probably. But the real treat of this mission is that one of the secrets is a switch that, if activated and backtracked into the first area, can lead to a brand new friend to make, the plasma rifle. This eviscerator of heavenly thrones is the chain gun, but better in every way, but as a creative gimmick that, although simple, is something to consider. Like any Doom gun, you don't actually reload in this. However, the moment you let go of the trigger, the rifle goes into a brief cooldown animation that eats up a little time before it can be fired again. So you could burn more ammo wasting shots between enemies but ensuring to hit the next guy immediately, or risk getting hit on the cooldown moving from face to face. It's a small risk ultimately, but it does offer alternative ways to play in subtle ways, and as someone who loves expressing themselves in the heat of action one way or another, hell yeah. What the fuck is that? Kako demons will start appearing now. They float and shoot projectiles to have a much easier time than most enemies getting to you. They're not too bad if you know where it is, and they make a unique noise when they spot you to help identify when you're in trouble, but lose their placement in the crowd and you'll soon know about it. They're projectile based thankfully, so as long as you do the Doom 101 of keep moving no matter what, you'll likely avoid most things even if you don't immediately spot them. Alternatively, playing like a coward like me and fucking? Oh, I meant the right ducking on the script. My autocorrect knows me too well. Ducking around a corner in between shots to avoid a problem entirely. M2 has 12 damn secrets, by the way. Some of them are stacked alongside others, so it isn't actually as bad as it sounds, but it's still more than any level in Episode 1, which should also be as a warning that the scale of these levels are starting to creep up too. Your chainsaw, chain gun, and rocket launcher all hiding here in secrets alongside another shotgun and another plasma rifle. Meaning if you die here and get dropped back to your pistol, it isn't the end of the world because your entire arsenal is here as long as you know where to look. Nabbing the chainsaw will also introduce lost souls too. Little guys with very little health but mostly want to just charge at you and bite you apart. But this is also why they give you the chainsaw here, because it carves them into bone marrow. The Berserker power-up is here too, making your melee attacks do huge damage. Something that's fun to mess with on occasion, but hard to recommend most of the time, due to, you know, getting into melee range of enemies to hit them. It's all fun and games until the power runs out and now you've got a broken leg to deal with. That said, find an invisibility as well with this, and you'll successfully find the only way to make the invisibility not pointless, as it will let you get a little more wiggle room with your punching fantasy, up until you hit one thing and it alerts the whole room anyway. M3 is pretty standard at this point. Unfortunately, nothing new to show here, just a decent sized level with plenty of trouble. The room to your immediate right has both a berserk and an invisibility in it though, so just have fun with that. This level has actually managed to stumble into all its secrets on my first run. Don't know if they're just easier here or I was getting a better understanding of how ID hides these things, but that was pretty cool at the very least. M4, I have a confession to make however. I did also find every secret here -1, that'll be obvious when I explain, and every item, and every enemy I could, but when I first found the exit, I missed the switch to raise the bridge and ended up getting lost looking for it. For 30 minutes, before eventually dying from being in the acid for too long. I then looked it up, found out the switch was literally next to the fucking door, and went to bed for the night. The actual thing of note here is that the Baron of Hell is now a normal enemy, so always be prepared to blast your ears gunning into them for 30 seconds or so each time you see one. Just don't make my mistake. Remember, this game isn't trying to be that complicated all in all. If you can't find a switch to open a path, try looking in the immediate area and don't assume it's somewhere within the entire blinking level. At least until the latter half of episode 3, more on that later. The secret level of the episode is hidden in M5, the one where Barons of Hell really try to tell you they're common enemies now. They're everywhere, in secrets, on the main path, next to the auto mapper. I'm sure it took out a whole family at least this level, with how everywhere they are. This level is also more maze-like as well, to boot, with a mountain ton of doors scattered around everywhere, most leading to dead ends, but a number to secrets. One of them has a switch that lifts up stairs into a fire that's secretly a teleporter, ultimately leading you to our M9 of E2. M9 is... M9 wants you to die. Fortress of Mystery? Yeah, more like Fortress of Misery. Hey, got him! I entered the next to no health left, but decided to ride it out for the save anyway. Don't do that. For the record, I've been saving at the start of each level just as a backup in case things go to Super Hell. Well, this was Super Hell. It's not actually that bad once you get going, but starting the level and immediately seeing this fuck definitely put the stress on for me. Just circle the room, getting what you can, and get out of there. 4 Barons of Hell aren't worth the ammo, let alone the health. In the next room it's more Kako demons that I thought a PC from 93 would even be able to handle, but I guess that's my bad for assuming what it can and can't handle. We have different keys here too at the end. They're still keys at the end of the day, but are skulls instead. Anyway, I beat this level in part-time, not by choice, but out of sheer will to survive. The gimmick of M6 is that you'll find the exit like 30 seconds into the stage, but it's locked behind 3 doors. So from there, you have to go explore to find them. The 3 secrets are nearby the yellow skull key, so I actually found them without having to think too hard on this. However, there is a fully functional trap in this level that's genuinely kinda cool. An alternative exit, it seems. Yeah, fake exits leading into a den full of enemies got a good reaction from me. In fact, I'd say the whole of episode 2 has more of a horror feel at times along the action. Not as in out to scare you horror, but more give little moments to catch you off guard more compared to episode 1. Nonetheless, nab your 3 skulls like the psycho you are and head on into M7. E2 M7 uses the same idea of needing the 3 skull keys again and has each one lead into the next to progress. However, this large level also has a pretty neat new power up that's pretty fun but a little annoying on the eyes. Pure invulnerability. Nothing can hurt you the whole time you're being blinded by the effect, so go wild in the time you have it. Makes for a fun level of destroying everything that gave you crap this episode before the big boss fight awaiting us in M8. M8 only has a couple lost souls and the main event. It's a giant arena you start squarely in the middle of, with 4 doors around you to leave. Open all of them for a free rocket launcher and all the ammo you could ever need. Once outside, run around and you'll eventually run into, oh hey dad! This is the Cyber Demon. He's big, he's the bulkiest thing we've fought so far, and he's also kinda stupidly easy. The arena is way too big, so you can just space him out from a mile away and rocket him to a slow death. The level will be over before you even really know it. If you do get hit though, it will blind your screen for longer than you'd think. If that happens, just move far away until you can see properly again. Once defeated, we learn we're at the edge of hell, so Doom Guy jumps straight in, ending episode 2. With the exception of getting lost via my own damn fault in M4, E2 is a huge step up from E1 in scale, challenge, and just pure enjoyment factor. Worth the money people would have paid for that mail order way back in the day. Wow, look at that skybox! M1 might be pretty short and tight on resources, but I think it's worth the 18 stages we've burned through so far to get here just to see this. This looks like a hell level for sure. Once again, episode start means back to pistol, but unlike previous episodes, the game is going to be much more unkind on supplying you with ammo for your weapons as you procure them. At least to start with. You'll find the shotgun hiding in a rather mean trap one room in, and the rocket launcher just before the exit. But there's a lot of tight spaces with plenty of enemies within, while only giving you a small handful of shells for your shotgun. Remember that part in episode 1 when I said falling back on the pistol when you have no other options shouldn't happen, and it'll probably be a death sentence anyway? Well, guess who the bitch who paid for saying that out loud was? That's right, this moron. M2 cleans up most of the arsenal again with the chain gun and plasma rifle to be found, leaving only the chainsaw missing, but that's fine. You wouldn't survive close encounters here anyway. There's threats everywhere, and the level deliberately places rocks as if they're thick trees, making it more awkward to find your way around the level. Although not impossible, I certainly felt the cold chill of death a number of times in this level alone, a real test of survival at this point. All you need to know about M3 is that the BFG 9000 is here, the last gun to add to our arsenal and the most iconic gun of the game. However, like how the chain gun shares bullet with the pistols, the big fucking gun, or the Bioforce gun, if you think the kinda bad movie matters at all, shares cells with the plasma rifle. It also eats up 40 shells per shot on any difficulty above the easiest, so only use this room clearer when you need to instead of a plasma rifle. A good trade-off for its pure brutality. This is unfortunately the peak of the episode for a while because both M4 and M5 kinda just came and went for me. So much so, they're the only levels I don't have notes for. I mean, I guess the teleport maze was different in M5, but there's only 4 portals, so you're gonna get it eventually. The chainsaw is tucked away here too if you want it that bad, but neither really made a lasting impact. I suppose that's the problem once every enemy and weapon has been introduced. It falls onto the level design to keep it spicy, and the levels just kinda didn't do that for me. Unfortunate too, because they really hadn't been a level I felt that way about yet, and then got hit with these two back to back, so onto M6 we go, which although kinda failed to rejuvenate my interest in E3, did offer me a secret level to detour into by taking a leap of faith from a teleport. And by leap of faith I mean rocket boosting. M9 starts with... Wait a minute. I've been here before. Is the secret in the Yeah, it is! What's the catch then? Oh, Dad, you came back! Oh, and there's an invincibility here too. So, this Cyber Demon rematch is even more of a joke than before then. Plenty of rockets and general death dealing to offer all around. The real threat is working backwards from here to get the keys, since one teleports you into the middle of extreme danger. Honestly, this is more of a threat than Cyberfather. Like, the bait and switch of revisiting E3 M1, just for it to actually be hiding way more threats, brought back that grin that had previously lived rent-free from E2, but had started to make a place smell a little here. But we're on a high now, so let's see what E7 has to... Oh, it's more teleport mazes, just now with the free keys as well to boot. Considering it's the last proper level of the main game, I suppose it makes sense to combine both the usual puzzles together for the last stretch, but it just makes the level kind of bulky as a result. Hot tip though, try to leave this level in the best condition you can and with BFG ammo. The final boss becomes near impossible if not well equipped. E3 M8 is your battle against the Spider Mastermind. Hey, you know that talk we had at the start about hit scans? This thing is the other hit scanner. Just know, if it can see you, and you can see sparks coming from its chain gun, you're taking damage, and it'll be absurd damage. Nuking it with all the BFG ammo you have, and then praying that the rest of your arsenal can clean up is the ultimate goal. If you have to go down to your melee options, you've already lost because it will out-damage you. Circling the middle pillar after clearing out the extras can help somewhat, but it's still going to be a war here, so brace yourself. Leave a save if you have a chance to start before starting, because if you die, I honestly don't see how you're beating this with just about 20 rockets and the pistol. It isn't enough. Winning finally sends the Doom guy home, with the demons knowing enough is enough. It isn't worth fighting him for now, but they did kill his pet rabbit Daisy, and that's literally the setup for the sequel. Alas, that is the ending of the main campaign of the game. There was an expansion as well that was released later on, titled Episode 4, Thy Flesh Consumed. Oh hey, 3 rooms into secrets, this level's going to be so short. I thought starting this level, you know, the way an idiot would. Barons of Hell just spawn on you without warning, imps bombard you from everywhere, about 6 specters rush you, yeah thanks game, what the fuck is this? I get this expansion came out sometime later, so people were more accustomed to the game, and so this was something to challenge them on it, but this creates one hell of a whiplash going through them nowadays. The shoddy rocket launcher and chain gun are all here at least, maybe M2 will be a little nicer with that nice inviting name, Perfect Hatred. Perfect Hatred. Perfect Hatred. You start in the middle of a war ground, and I don't know how I survived most of this mission, but I'm sure I spent more of it holding my breath than actually breathing. But hey, one of the keys you need spawns 3 Barons of Hell as soon as you get close to it, and the only escape route forces you to run past a 4th, and the key you got unlocks a platform where Baron 5 and 6 are vibing. I don't think I ever left panic mode during this stage, for better or worse. There's a plasma rifle by the feet of Baron Bro 1, and a chainsaw en route to the 2nd key. Don't even think about that chainsaw though, you'll die. But after clearing out the neighborhood bullies, and with 2 keys in tow, I beat the opening room to find Dad! You've opened a store! Ah, good for you. Can you please stop trying to sell me rockets to the face, though? I don't like the way they come at me. I'll have that BFG, though, please. If you're smarter than I am, you can activate the portal to its position and beeline for it without fighting the Cyber Demon. When you warp, you'll warp into the demon, which will kill it instantly. This is called telefragging. It's actually a normal thing in ID games in general to keep it locked up in the back of your head. It could save a life, you know. 2 beings cannot occupy a teleporter space at the same time, so whatever enters second kills what was first to make room for it. This rule also applies to you back, but you're more likely to be on the receiving end of that if you play co-op Quake with a mean person. The secret level is here too, and it's called Fear. E4 M9 would surprise me, starting with enemies already looking at me, but we've been here enough times for this to not be as violent on my soul. But we have our entire arsenal at least, and this doesn't make me feel any safer. That said, though, I found M9 to be the easiest of Episode 4's levels, on account of no Barons and no Dads. I was actually quite relieved to find it actually pretty manageable and fair compared to the rest of it. M3 has 22 secrets and 19 of them are on the same bloody staircase. I really just want to scare secret hunters now, huh? I saw that 22 and felt something in my heart stop, just to find out that it's a really loud set of stairs you can find instead. After gearing up as much as I can, I usually just get the first key, aim for the invulnerability, and pray I get the second key and out of the level before it runs out. I mean, look at how many guys I book it past in the end here. Beating maps in episode 4 feels less like overcoming the odds and more like solving a puzzle to outplay the game's own systems. It feels like it challenges what was the recommended playstyle of the other episodes, to kill everything and get into the thick of it. In this, doing either will just burn ammo you don't have and get you killed. I like the idea of mixing up the formula, but the new strat being a trial by fire and return made it hard to even realise what I was expected to do, let alone pull it off. On a weird note, however, M4 straight up tells you where its secret is upon approach. One torch being green instead of red kinda told me everything, and the fact it offers up both of the level secrets from it just came across as strange to me. Why be nice and make the secret obvious now when it's never been that blunt before? Mercy? Well, if that's the case, can the enemies be the real mercy on me please and not the secret? You might have noticed by now that despite being brutally hard, all the levels are like 4 rooms big at most. They're compact as can be while still scooter whipping your shins as often as they can. Makes each death far more swallowable. Most of the time making a more trial and error style of levels. Despite how it may sound, I did enjoy the extra challenge all of these levels gave me. It just also exhausted me more than I cared to admit to, and I'm not sure what I would have done differently to keep these ideas while letting me breathe more. Making the level bigger would make the deaths more frustrating. Loosening the challenge would defeat the point, and safety nets levels in between the brutal ones would effectively just waste levels since one death puts you back to the pistol anyway, making the breather pointless. What I'll say is, make your own breathers. Come away between levels, especially if one took you a while. Don't just grind through them all because you want to make notes for a review like I did. The biggest problem, however, is that it gives me less to talk about when it comes to these gauntlets. M5 can let you skip the final key if you full sprint off an edge for a window space. M6 is a teleport puzzle but uses the same warp instead of several, making it a matter of what side of the warp you approach from. Also, Dad's here again, he won't let me out of my room until I beat him. M7 has glitched secrets you physically can't get without cheats, and considering this is the last actual level of the game since 8 is always the boss challenge, I think I'll use that point to summarise my thoughts on these levels as a whole. Although I still got mileage out of them, man were they the weakest part of the game for me. Each level took more out of me, and it's a shame too because the main game is so good for the most part. I'm sure there's folks that tell me that this expansion was brilliant, or that I'm just not good enough to enjoy it and all that, and I say sure, whatever. I'm still going to judge how it felt to me, and how it felt was frustrating without the reward for sticking through it. M8 has a rematch against the Spider Mastermind, but at least has you detour first to get a key, and actually shows a little restraint on the whole Barons of Hell being everywhere. Well, they're still everywhere, but at least now they're spaced out so you can handle them one by one. Upon victory, the game teases the battle will come to Earth yet, setting up Doom 2. Yeah, episode 4, despite some fun moments, really killed the momentum for me. Too much of a constant push to deal with barons or dads. Little resources at first with enemies just spawning on you in drones. The trial and error aspect was interesting but tiring as it went on. I'd say episode 2 is the best of the bunch here, with 1 following after, then 3, and then a decent stretch before I even think about 4. However, that doesn't change the fact that I had an insane amount of fun here. I felt like I understood the mechanics better of each level, played more aggressively, understood ID's DNA of secret hiding for the most part, and in general had a great time trying out this game from 30 years ago. It was a masterpiece of its time for a reason, and it's aged pretty well for the most part. At some point I'd like to cover the sequels of this series, eventually catching up to the games I was first exposed to, 2016 and Eternal. But for now, I mostly had fun, and I think I'll take what I can get, because the general opinion of the next few titles seems to worsen as it goes on. And despite the onslaught of episode 4, at least enemies couldn't resurrect to harm me even further. Wait, what do you mean there's a thing in the sequel? And that's it. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed my ramblings of a 30-year-old game, consider liking and subscribing to help the channel grow. In the description, you can find my Twitter for general updates, my Patreon for directly supporting my content, and my PayPal if you want to leave a tip. I want to do more of these kind of videos, but finding the time will always be my tallest hurdle currently. Maybe one day the tides will turn and we can have some more fun with these, but until then, I'll see you guys next time. Peace.